Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown and you lose it?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy. Darling. Light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Are you fucking ready, bud?
I'm posting my wonderful review on the Letterbox for everybody to see, because I want to talk about how great I love this movie.
You wait until we're recording before I get to see it. See, you have going in kind of my opinion on the movie based on my Letterbox review, and I'm going in fucking blind, dude. I never know what you're thinking.
But okay, hon. I think that we've been doing this long enough
I
that you
know.
pretty much know exactly how I feel about this movie.
Gat and I were talking shit on the Discord.
Yeah.
He dropped the first N-bomb. We're like, oh god, where's Jordan?
but oh my god!
I know. We're gonna
right off the top. Can we just get on that? That's like Reservoir Dogs. It's so unnecessary. It feels so awkward and dumb. This movie, I'm like, yeah.
It makes more sense.
It's a 1970s. This movie's made in 1970. 1971. Whatever.
Wow, a racist cop. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, exactly. It's 1970 in like Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying the N-word without any hesitation.
Yeah.
So it just like I don't know. It's so funny.
It did suit it. It did like It did give you a level because it's like. Well, this is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast.
Oh yeah, welcome.
That's Jordan Isley.
And there's less racism in this movie than Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, so, maybe. Yeah, probably.
I mean, not really.
Not
but,
actively, because it's like everyone's actively racist. But it's just like it goes to show the, I don't know, like the flawed characters. Because it's like you don't really root for Popeye. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not really rooting for anyone in this movie.
I think at least like my opinion on that is it was purposeful that they were trying to just kind of portray these cops authentically and like but like also like it's the fact that you probably know this and everyone in podcast land, if you're just learning this the first time, I just learned this recently because I just looked it up, and there's a lot of history about this movie out there, and it is like it's like one of those like based off police cases.
I didn't know it was like based on a true story, but it feels
like 90% of the actors in this are cops. Like everyone in that bar scene, they're all like ex-cops or on duty, or whatever, active cops at the time. So it's like
sense.
Everybody involved in this was like really. So that's what's hard is like it is pro cop, and this is something I didn't know, and now you will learn this too. I don't know if you know this, Levi, and just everyone out there in the world. Every single movie that has a cop in it, they consult the police departments, and they get permission to use likeness and to use to portray them. And so even if a cop is portrayed in a negative light, they're allowed to do that because the cops will shut it down because they have such a strong union that the cops will they won't let you portray a cop too poorly and too realistically. So if you ever see a cop portrayed negatively in a film, it was crafted.
I need to watch like
so wild.
That is wild to me because especially some movies, movies where it's just like it's about that, about like the like like you think they got police
cop is
Fruitville Station based. It's like based on a true story, about like an unarmed black guy getting shot by a cop. It's like you think they got the cops' permission to do that?
Well, yes, 100%. That's how
fucking
that's
wild
how it
to me. That's wild.
And it's
I know
wild,
it is with the military. I knew for sure the military is super butthole about it, but
yeah, dude, no, it's crazy to think
interesting.
Right. It is very interesting. But anyways, it's like it gives it an authentic perspective. I feel like, and it I actually kind of. I don't know.
That's kind of the best part about this movie, honestly, is the gritty kind of realism. Especially for the era, like early 70s, because the 70s did a lot of that which
Yeah, exactly. This kind of invented the tropes. But
let's
anyways,
pump,
we'll
hold
get
on,
there.
let's pump the brakes. Let's pump the brakes real quick. So,
Let's go back
we're
to the beginning of the
doing
case.
70s movies, and I specifically wanted to do it because it's like I love that era in film, but yet I feel like there's a lot of classics I haven't seen, this being
Like
one
this.
of them, you know? So I'm glad we kind of went with this genre or this category, and because this movie, it's like the gritty vibe is kind of what the 70s became, but this was like 1971, like filmed before that, obviously, so it's like right on the cusp.
Is it Friedkin, right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
This is his first like feature film that's like he did like some documentary.
Yeah, I always forget
pieces
that
before
because he's
that weren't-
most known for The Exorcist.
which came out like a year later.
Yeah,
Is
it
that
came
2
out
years
like
after this or
right,
something,
like
right?
a couple years.
Right?
It was like
That's
73,
early-
74, something like that.
Yeah, right. That's early 70s. And The Exorcist is a phenomenal film. And so, anyways,
I just so we're talking about the movie The French Connection.
yeah, right. We haven't said it yet.
I did write a synopsis, so let's let me read it for you. It's quick, so let's see. Let's give it a shot. For those of you who may need a reminder, I mean, this movie did come out over 50 years ago. So Jimmy Popeye Doyle and his partner Buddy Russo are a couple of hardened New York City detectives that, while out getting a drink one night, notice a young guy showing too much cash and hanging with a shady crowd. On one of his infamous hunches, Popeye wants to follow the guy and see if he's linked to the city's narcotics trade. Sal, the young man in question, seems to be involved with just that, but there is little hard evidence to go on, but Jimmy is insistent. Meanwhile, in France, Alain and his hitman buddy arrange to move several kilos of heroin into the U.S. using a famous TV personality to get around customs. They succeed and work their way into the underworld, where it turns out Sal is their intermediary between a larger drug syndicate. Popeye, Russo, and a couple other feds they brought onto the project follow the crew around, trying to be sneaky and failing. Annoyed with Doyle's antics, the French hitman tries to snipe him unsuccessfully from a rooftop, and a chase ensues. The hitman commandeers a train, while Jimmy steals some poor dude's car and races it across town, trying to beat the train to its final destination. He makes it to the end and blasts the guy. It never comes up again. Popeye connects the TV star's car to the organization and impounds it. After an exhaustive search, he is vindicated when they find a bunch of that sweet, sweet dope hidden in the frame of the car. The cops return the drugs to the car and wait for the deal to go through. Eventually, the entire Garbage Man Union seems to be a part of this drug deal, and just as it's finishing up, Elaine and Sal go to leave only for Doyle and the rest of the Popo to be waiting. A shootout ensues where Sal is killed, and Jimmy, as usual, just sort of drunkenly stumbles around chasing Elaine, the mastermind, but ends up shooting an FBI agent instead. Elaine somehow escapes, and Popeye and his partner are transferred. The end.
Yeah. Right? I know. Yeah, I mean, it's like...
I kind of like it, but it feels kind of messy.
It's messy, but it has that, like... It has the 70s charm. There is such a...
It does. It's got the vibe.
I think there's a barrier... Oh, my God.
Barrier
for entry because 70s films are disjointed and broken. Like they'll like it's weird how like they capture such a realism.
Yeah.
Like same with fucking Dog Day. It like that's based off of like a real story, like literally like beat for beat basically. And so
well,
you tell that story, but you embellish and you make it cinematic, but like it feels so real that it kind of like I can see it not being as like beautifully crafted. Like I'm trying to think like it like in like if you compare it to I don't know, a movie made in the 90s or something where they kind of like they don't try to be as serious and tell the true story, quote unquote, of the person. They kind of embellish and they tell more of.
Well, yeah, they bring it back around because they had the 80s to kind of rehone it in. Because I think that's why. I mean, not all movies are like this from the 70s, but I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy the 70s, because we talked about previously that, like, that was kind of the breakdown of, like, everything so tight, everything so perfect of the golden age of the 40s and 50s. And then you had to live through the 60s where things started being a little bit more countercultural. And then in the 70s, you just get these raw movies that kind of don't follow the traditional 3-act structure that filmmaking has set up for the past half century. You know what I mean? And so that's why a movie like this, it's like I feel like by the end of the decade, they kind of refined it and made it a little tighter. But it's like, even like you said, Dog Day is super loose, super raw. It's paced weird. Because
the
of its
is weird. I do like it. There's something endearing
well, it's more about the energy, and I think that's what they realized with cinema, because that's what this movie has in spades. Is it's like it's fucking fast.
That fucking soundtrack. I could
from the credits. It's just like pom pom, and I was like, oh, god damn,
dude, and those sick ass. So freaking does that a lot. He like his zooms, like in Exorcist especially. Those like sick ass like 45-second zooms where it's just the slowest on like nothing really. Like it doesn't really have.
It's
any
just
significance.
because
it's
they're
just a guy walking,
and that's what's great.
The zoom is just like, it's like the zoom's like literally like 40 blocks away.
That's the thing. It's like the
it.
70s vibe, which is what I'm digging, is because it's like they're going a little bit more guerrilla. They're shooting in the city.
Dude,
they're just everything's
no
shot.
permit.
Everything. They're on a fucking bridge shooting the scene with a telephoto lens, and so they're like, well, we can't set up a massive dolly track, so zooms, bam, because we got to give the camera movement still, or we don't want to just set it on a tripod. You know, it is. But I think that's like part of it is just the kind of run and gun shooting on location. It's like less like there's probably no sets in this at all. Like it's all like
it is. There's not a single set
and that
built.
That it feels
it
feels real.
Pretty cool, pretty wild.
Yeah.
And probably you know, I mean it's probably a limitation of budget and a limitation of time and all the limitations add up to where it's like we'll just run and gun, shoot location. That's what we have to do. And I think there is a strong counterculture to what we were talking about, where the 50s and 60s were very clean, and you had to. It's like like everything was shot on a soundstage. It's like to shoot. It's like
meticulously blocked.
Right,
fucking.
like,
but this is just like we're gonna throw this fucking camera in a car. You're gonna run down the street as fast as you can, and I'm gonna shoot that shit from the car.
And it
feels so fast.
There's not a single in the city. There's no extras. It's like
just
it's
city.
like it's just the city. So it's whatever energy the city's bringing. That's what it is. Like doing the sniper shot that scene.
They just actually shot some lady with her baby.
Well, no, I know, right. But basically, though, like they were like firing, and people were freaking the fuck out because they were like a dude's on the roof with a gun. Like it was, you know, it's like and it's like I mean that still happens to this day, but it's like it's just kind of funny how it's like back then it's like there's no PA that's going around like putting flyers on doors or anything. They're just like there's some guy with a blowhorn that's like, all right, everybody in this vicinity, we're gonna shoot. We're shooting a movie, and this is a fake gun, but it like makes real gun noises.
This is,
and it's, like,
it's
real.
Fucking New York, where there's a buttload of people. So
right, you just can't get away from people. But So what was your first impression? Because this was your first time.
Yeah, I was it your first time?
Of course.
Oh,
of
okay.
course, yeah.
Which again, this is why I'm loving this genre this.
Oh, and I just wanted to say this. This does, I think, coming off Reservoir Dogs. This really like that. Reservoir Dogs is like the closest thing I feel like I mean, I guess maybe Jackie Brown, but it's like, you know, I just feel like so 70s influence. Like watching this and then thinking about Reservoir Dogs, I'm like, oh man, yeah. They feel.
I had a good time with this. I was kind of like struggling with my attention span. I think it was just me. Because
I watched it in 3 parts, but yeah.
Yeah, just because it is kind of disjointed, and it's like I wasn't having a hard time necessarily following what was happening, but it was just like back and forth between France at the first part, and I'm like, okay, so it's all kind of coming together, trying to follow this fucking Jimmy Popeye character, and then it's like once it all started coming, I think there was a little too much of the sleuthing around, like them following the guys, because it's like
really, that was our Vertigo back. Go listen
to
that episode.
Yes, I was thinking of
all
Vertigo.
I was thinking about the whole time I was watching this. I'm like, oh, this has got Vertigo syndrome, because it is a lot of driving or a lot of sitting in a car,
walking, getting in and out of a subway like 6 times.
And don't get me wrong, I actually in this the soundtrack 100% carried this movie for me. Like the whole time they're walking, I'm like, okay, I'm getting bored, and then boom, they'd hit you with like that cello, and it'd just be like, boom, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm like, oh, I'm paying attention now. Don't
it's
worry
pretty-
about it.
yeah, it
I'm
was
paying
fun.
attention, and then it's just like it gets so energetic and dancey, and like I'm like moving a lot, and then all it is like him walking around, and he's like, I'll order a pink or order that purple drink, and then like he's just
Right.
like sitting there, you know, and that like it is the cat and mouse of it back and forth. I really enjoyed that energy.
Same.
And I think that like if the soundtrack was flatter or more orchestrated, like a larger
Yeah.
ensemble band, you know, something that more like a
It was basically just like a jazz band, you know what I mean? Like it was very just like bam,
right.
like
or just really stripped down where it's just cello, like
Yeah.
cello and violin or something just together, like really deep tones, and it's like
you know
love
this
that, but
you know what this reminded
first-
me of is so as I was watching it, what I couldn't stop thinking of, and I think this is a testament to the the quote unquote realness of it, is this constantly reminded me of The Wire. Just because it's like not only is the main character of The Wire, if you can call it that, his name is also Jimmy, and he's a drunk police
that's funny.
detective.
That is funny. Yeah, right.
He even has
kept that trope.
he even has a similar scene of like he meets some random chick and bangs her, just kind of like Popeye just somehow bangs that chick on the bicycle. Just
Right. Oh God,
like-
I forgot all about that. That's actually good storytelling too. That was good. Like
yeah, I mean
filmmaking
it does
in that
it
part,
does show
you know,
to his character without like overdoing it, because it's like what kind of guy he is, but it's
Well,
like
and I like earlier he asked like one girl about like her boots. You know, he's like, he's like, I just want to ask you about your boots or so whatever. And it's like you just know, like you're like, oh, this guy's a sleaze. And then later it's like, oh, he proves that he's sleaze, and so it's
he's a sleaze, but he's like,
I like
all he's got is the job, and so I do feel like Popeye was kind of a template for Jimmy McNulty in The Wire, and the kind of even the scene where they go to the bar, to the black bar, and they're just like fucking frisking everyone. They're like, get up against the fucking wall, and being like pieces of shit and like getting them all. But then he takes the guy into the bathroom, and he's like his CI, and he's like, so what's the deal? Do you know what's the skinny? Like that felt so like it, and I'm like, obviously this came 30 years before The Wire.
yeah, right.
But it just goes to show, because it's like The Wire is heralded as being like super real, super like lauded for being like, this is actual police experience. And so since it was so similar, I'm like, oh yeah, this must be stories of real New York cops. Like I felt that,
me
and
too,
that connection.
right.
And I do feel like, McNulty owes some to Popeye now, which is kind of cool. I was kind of enjoying that angle, but yeah,
fun to find that similarity.
I had fun with it, but I was never like frustrated, but I ended it being like, yeah, it was all right. You know what I mean? Like it ended, I'm like, that was cool. I'm really glad I saw it, and maybe I'd watch it again one day. But
I mean,
maybe
this isn't even remotely close to my genre taste, and so I can clearly appreciate what I'm watching, and I mean it's influential for the independent aspects of it. I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot.
And that's fun, and something I like about it is that it let me know that like Friedkin made a documentary. His first feature was like this documentary about like a black guy that was like falsely incriminated or falsely imprisoned or maybe murdered. I'm not 100% sure. I have to go back and look at it. And he made like a documentary about him and like worked with like the police and like worked with them.
He's done a few documentaries, and I think that's cool, to kind of like, he's known for all of his narrative films, but it's just like, I don't know, he gets his hands dirty doing the real shit too, and I like that.
And that's cool. And that is, I mean, I think that's the through line on this is like, we're gonna keep coming back to like authenticity. This feels very authentic, which kind of like that is what creates kind of the shitty character and the characters I don't really care. And unfortunately there was like no one for me to connect to. Like with The Exorcist, I'm like, I feel for everyone involved in The Exorcist. Like the emotional stakes there for the parents and the child and the priest. It's like everyone involved in that movie I feel. And where this, I just feel like we're at that telescopic lens. We're at a distance from everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like there's not a strong impact, but I think that the ending, spoiler alert, the ending is sick. And do you know what's fucked up though? The like Friedkin's original ending was just the gunshot, which was so cool.
I like that
But then-
more. I was
then
bummed with the title cards. Yeah.
The title cards, like when the title cards came up, I was like, oh wow. And then, but then that chain reaction made me think, well, when was the first time we had these like true crime title cards come up? And I'm like, this has got to be one of the first. I mean, I'm sure it's been done way before this. Obviously, everything's been done before, but I'm curious what, like, you know, I feel like this was kind of one of those, and it's odd that the studio pushed that, you know, and like,
Yeah, because
And
it does undercut the gunshot. Because I was like,
hey,
oh,
gunshot left
is
me. I was
it
like, whoa, cool.
is it
And then-
Jimmy getting shot? Is it fucking
Right.
the fucking Frenchman? Like, it does have this ambiguity that really does feel like very Friedkin-esque, where it's just like, you know, what's it gonna be? Because I mean, my favorite Friedkin is Killer Joe.
Killer Joe,
and the
right.
ending of Killer Joe is just like, we're gonna have a baby, and it's just like she's got the gun on him, and it just ends. You know what I mean? So I fucking love Killer Joe, but yeah, I don't know. The title card, like, it was fun. I laughed. That was one of those unintentionally hilarious moments where I'm just like, what? And they're like, and then he got transferred, and then this guy got away. I liked it because it felt real, and
Right.
like sometimes there is no resolution. Like sometimes you just shoot an FBI agent, and the guy you're trying to kill just gets away. But it's, you know, that's cops, baby. That's New York police detectives, baby. And but also I was just like, it undercut the gunshot and the kind of like frantic, because it was kind of shocking when he shot the guy. You know what I mean? Because he already had like a reputation for like, you got a cop killed before.
And his bloodlust didn't end, and it gave me this sense of like the partnership is broken there. Like you can see that look in his eyes, and he's just like, he straight up Jaws dude is like, you know, Roy Scheider or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just like not.
You
he's
do.
like, oh fuck, you've gone over the line.
No,
What-
you can
know,
see
what
it
do I
for
do?
sure that it's
Yeah,
like, that's a
no,
rift
that's
for
great.
sure.
Right, and that was great. And then it just ends with the gun. He runs and there's a gunshot, and you're like, what? You know, what's gonna happen? It really gave me like that. I was left with suspense, and I was like, oh, cool, that's a lasting ending. And then the title card came up, and I kind of was like, and then there's the resolution, cool. So they live.
It's because it's like that. That's another thing that kind of like I started popping its head up in the 70s, most so that I also like, is it kind of had that like narcissistic kind of vibe where it's just like, you know, he shoots this guy, and the guy's like, oh my god, you shot him, and he's like fucked up, and he's like, no, he's around here somewhere, and he just like keeps going because he's like fucking manic and so fixated on it, and then it's just like, but he doesn't get his guy, you know what I mean? And it's just like sometimes shit just doesn't have a bow on it, and sometimes like, and it's not even like, oh god, this is the fucking horrors of, you know, this. It's just like, it just is what it is, and I don't know, it's brutal. And the ending, the title cards kind of undercut it, but I don't know, it works. It's still,
Right,
it's still
I mean,
fine. It's fine. It's not
It's
like a
still-
huge
right.
thing, but
No, exactly. Because this isn't a movie that I don't know. We say this often, or at least I do on this pod. Is like, I'm like, if this is your favorite movie, that's cool. It's definitely not close to my favorite movie, or it won't like.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
was fine with
yeah,
it.
it was good. It was a lot of. It was fun, but yeah, it's, and you know, it's memorable, especially that chase sequence and stuff like that was super dope.
Right, and that was like the
That's like
the most
set
ambitious
piece,
chase scene
yeah.
ever done up to then. You know,
God, it's
they're
so
like-
fast, and
like,
it's fucking
it-
just intense,
and
just
it's like it's 100% real. That's what's kind of fun. That's something that I'm like, guerrilla filmmaking is, you know, amazing and beautiful, and I love when it's like you hear those stories of like, you know, quote unquote established directors working within like unions and Hollywood and the system, and then they're kind of like, all right, we're just gonna like film this scene, and then we're just rolling. Like, we're gonna have a couple cameras set up, and they're gonna be in a couple different cars, and we're just gonna shoot. And they only had like a fucking section shut down to shoot, but then they just kept going, and they like floored it. And like Gene Hackman shot half of it because he just was in the car actually driving, and so he kept going. And that, like, the car accident, the first car accident in that chase scene, you know, under the train,
Yeah.
that was unintentional. The dude like filed lawsuit, and like it was like it got all settled after production and everything. And so
Really?
it's like that reels of like, imagine just leaving your fucking house. You don't even know there's a film set happening. You know, there's no trailers. It's not been blocked off like it is nowadays. It's like there's nothing. You have no idea, and you're just like, on my way to work, honey, and boom, you just fucking hit this crazy dude. You're like, Jesus Christ. But then you end up in a movie that's still being talked about today. So
Yeah,
that's
true.
pretty cool. And you got like.
I
They
know.
got, like, a lawsuit out of
That's like the only real negative to guerrilla filmmaking is like the safety. Like, but
I know.
but
Yeah,
there is a raw again. There's a rawness to the art that
the
we
charm.
appreciate. That we're just like, fuck your safety, bitch.
Well, yeah, I kind of like.
But
Sometimes you got to go. over the
I even know because there was the shot when it's like he pulled the car over and it fucking slid and it was going so fast and it stopped and then Gene Hackman got out in one shot and I was like, holy shit. They didn't fake that. That was Gene Hackman just driving.
Gene Hackman doing it. Well, and apparently Gene Hackman was like, I don't know, friends with stunt guys and stuff. I mean, he was embedded in the scene, so it's like he had a bunch of friends and stuff. And so and just how like guerrilla style this was and how
I liked seeing him. I liked seeing him kind of younger like this. But I gotta mention because we keep talking about Friedkin.
I know.
I gotta mention he just died yesterday.
Dude.
And
isn't that wild?
I was like, it wouldn't have come to shock to me normally, but it's like, so I was watching this with Gat, and after it ended, I was like, man, is William Friedkin still alive? Because he's old as fuck. Like, he's got to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. And I looked it up. I'm like, oh, okay, 87 years old. He's still kicking. Good for you. He's going to fucking outlive Clint Eastwood, man. Like, he's going to keep on going.
He's going to have a new film. And then
I know. And then literally I'm like, what's he going to do next? Because, like, he's obviously, like, I mean, Killer Joe was like 12 years ago or whatever, but it was excellent. And so 12 years ago, he's still like 75. So I'm like, he's got it still, man.
Right. And he did something in like 2000.
He did a documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I can see that. He could be doing something else.
And
soon.
then I saw he died the next day, and I was like, oh no. And so he's just like, R.I.P. William Friedkin died yesterday at 87 years young. Because I was impressed. I was like,
do another older director. Then we can't curse them.
I know we got to do someone that's already dead.
We're doing 70s directors. They're all old now.
I know if they're still even alive.
Oh shit.
Who else are we gonna kill next?
No.
I know. I wish I would have killed a different director.
Joel
at least.
Schumer or something. Can we
Yeah,
get Joel Schumer?
get Joel Schumacher.
Please, God. Yeah, Joel Schumacher.
Yeah,
Please.
God, too bad he ruined the
watch-
90s instead.
Yeah, let's watch
80s and 90s.
Dude, do you know what's wild though? I'm looking at Friedkin's film history, and he did the 12 Angry Men.
I know. We talked about. I was like,
the 90s version.
I was like, oh shit, I gotta watch the 90s remake now because William Friedkin did it, and I had no idea, and so I'm like, I gotta watch it because it's like William Friedkin rules.
And I think my favorite Friedkin movie is probably, I don't know, Bug is high up.
Bug. See, that was what kind of introduced me to him because. Right. I mean, I didn't know
he was The Exorcist. Yeah,
I'd seen The Exorcist first, but like you don't think about William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist. Like The Exorcist is such a iconic type horror film. Yeah. But yeah, I saw Bug when it came out, and I was like, "What is this?" And that made me fall in love with Michael Shannon as well. And I'm like, "Who's this guy?"
Dude, I love Michael Shannon so much.
Michael Shannon is my love.
Yeah, dude,
I was like, "Who's this guy? This William Friedkin director?" And then I'm like, "Oh, he's a billion years old. He directed." The Exorcist.
He directed like the most iconic horror film ever. So it's like, okay, and Bug sadly didn't get much love. And
Bug is my wife's least favorite movie of all time.
Well, it's funny. Victoria loves it.
Really?
Victoria loves it, dude. The mother bug, dude.
Dude, I love Bug.
We are the mother bug, dude.
It's the most paranoia inducing, like that, and like fucking like Climax or something, or like Irreversible, something by Gaspar Noé.
Yeah,
and then Bug, like those movies. If you want to smoke a bunch of meth and get real paranoid, like that's the movie. That's the one.
That's a vibe. You don't even need the meth. Dude.
I know. Anyway, so the French Connection though,
right,
is pretty good, man. I don't know. I might go back and amend my. I gave it a 3-star rating just because I was sort of underwhelmed. But talking about it, I might go back and give it a half a star because it's like.
I gave it 2 because I'll never revisit it, and you know me. That's harsh.
I like
I know it did what it did, and it's
three.
fine, I don't know.
Three's like middle of the road, and I'm like, if it 3.5 is like, you know what, that was pretty good, but I'm not gonna like fucking write home about it. But I can see a lot of its strengths. That's 3.5, and so I'm like, okay, you know, this movie is a 3.5. But I did feel I left it being like, I think it was hyped up in a way. I mean, it's a 50-year-old movie, but it's just like everyone. It's like the French Connection's on all these lists. You know what I mean?
I think that's
William
really got me. It's
Friedkin. I came
it's
in
the
knowing
top
who
100
he
list on
is.
IMDb.
Mhm.
You know, I'm kind
And
of just like,
it is good, but
how?
I could see it
yeah,
more
like, how?
for its influence, right? Like
Sure,
like
right.
its influence on like the hard-boiled cop
I mean, and
drama or
I
like
think that's where I'm getting
thriller.
clouded too, because this lives in a lot of tropes because it kind of crafted a lot of the tropes. Like, we
Yeah.
had, I mean, a lot of the way that suspense was shot, it's similar to this, but like this just has a different elevated energy, and that the subway scene is probably some of the greatest, like, just, I don't know, edited. And I love that wave that he does. It's like, it's so
The
perfect,
wave,
and
the
I
wave
love
is
that- I
great,
love that,
and then
like,
the comeback of the wave when he gives him the wave when he's
when he-
caught
when he
later.
does
I'm
the-
like,
yeah.
that's
and,
good.
And I do like that, like, they're like run and gun, you know, and they like go with their gut, and like they're super intense, and they don't succeed. Like, I mean, like, they kind of do. They, like, basically they don't win battles, but they win the war on drugs. It's like that's kind of the,
Yay! They
you
won,
know,
guys. Did you
they-
not get the memo?
right.
They
Yeah,
won the war on
finally-
drugs
they-
before
yeah,
it
they won
even
the war on drugs.
began.
Right, I know, right. Well, dude, it's so wild. So the whole thing, I think, what also my personal politics kind of get involved, because everyone, I mean, anytime a movie says you're a good cop, I'm just like, oh, that doesn't exist. But I think that the people that they're based off of are even worse than them. He actually got fired without a pension because he was stealing evidence and fucking shit up as a cop. And like, he was a bad cop, but then the popularity of this movie got him reinstated and got his pension back. And I'm like, fuck him, dude. I don't give a shit about
That's
this.
hilarious.
He doesn't deserve his,
That
he doesn't
makes-
deserve his pension.
That
Fuck
makes
cop.
100% sense, even
Yeah,
just from
right.
Gene Hackman's performance. I'm like,
I know,
I'm like,
right?
he
Well, no,
definitely just stole one of those heroin bricks and sold it. Like,
Gene Hackman worked with the real dude a lot, enough to where like he went on patrol with him, and Gene Hackman was like, this is some of the most fucked up shit I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, yeah, I love that, man. Go for it. Get in there.
amazing.
Tell that story. So I think that, like, telling this story is important because I can be like, okay, well, now I just looked into it, and the real live human beings that these are portrayed on are 10 times worse than what we're seeing portrayed in this film. And so, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
I mean, I like seeing
that's
him.
what you learn.
I've always kind of liked Gene Hackman.
I mean, Unforgiven is that's his greatest role.
Yeah,
I
Unforgiven
fucking
or
love him.
Royal Tenenbaum.
yeah, sure,
That's probably that and Unforgiven. Those are the two main
that's
ones.
right, yeah.
But I'm always seeing him
I
so
love-
young
love
in this. I'm
Unforgiven.
like, I like that. You know, like
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
he's got a charisma that I like. Like, he's a pretty good actor.
Really though, I mean, he totally stole the show for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
he was.
See, now
technically
I
the
want to.
main-
I'm gonna
main
put it.
actor.
I put it on the poll, but it didn't win. But The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola. See, if we would have watched that though, Francis Ford Coppola would have fucking died, like this week.
Oh, my
Like,
God. That's terrifying. No, I swear he's making a new movie.
he is. It's coming out pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So, or watch Unforgiven and Clint Eastwood, but Clint Eastwood will never
Well, I
die,
don't know about
unfortunately.
that. Yeah. I don't know how.
He's-
It's because
He should just
lived
get it
a
over
healthy,
with.
he lived a healthy, clean life, and now he's I don't know.
with this
Whatever Republican baby stem cells he gets, that's what
Yeah.
that's what he gets. Keeps him young.
But you got a money minute for me? I'm curious
Yeah,
since
I
this
mean,
is so raw. Again, going farther back, it's harder to keep track of that too, you know. But
This is definitely, I feel like I'm not 100% sure exactly how the money stacks up when I looked at it. I need to, so sometimes there's like 3 sources I use to find this out, and it's kind of like, oh hey, I forgot Gene Hackman's in Bonnie and Clyde. Anyways, I'm getting off track here, but
I know I'm like looking at it.
sometimes like Box Office Mojo will tell me, and then IMDb has it, and then like there's sometimes just a third source located on Wikipedia. Anyways, this movie was 1.8 million to make, which seems I don't know if that was for like inflation, you know, because I could definitely see this movie being cheaper. But then again, it also like the behind the scenes, they did do there was a lot of like post production for this movie. But anyways, it's 1.8 million, and then it grossed 51 million.
Nice.
And so like I can
good.
and I'm like might be fluctuated for inflation. But even if this movie was making like half that, like 20 million or something, or 18 million in the box office in 1971, that's nuts. That's pretty good. Like there is no like home entertainment, that's based off of this. So it's like all theaters, dude.
So adjusted for inflation, so I bet you that was the equivalent, because so adjusted for inflation is 15.7 million today, which is still, considering the type of movie, if you made French Connection today, it would definitely cost you more than 15 million. You know what I mean? Big stars on the streets of New York. Obviously, they did it all guerrilla style, but like,
and that car chase and stuff would
that's
take,
pretty.
But they would.
That'd be 15 million alone, just the fucking car chase, these days. So.
There's actually something about that car chase that I fucking loved and respected so much more than anything contemporary.
It's the best part of the movie, honestly. It's so good.
It's like the editing, the pacing, and I think it's like, I mean, also I have like a a little nostalgia twinge for those like big heavy ass fucking cars, dude. It's just like these huge boats just floating on, like, and they're only going like 45 miles an hour, but the car's so big that
they hit like they're going 60, bud. Like,
it would obliterate a child. Like, it would like cripple an adult and just obliterate a child. Like, they're so big, and then just that like the screeching and the dude. And I noticed something about this movie that is beautiful and actually done really well, doesn't really stand out, is the sound design.
I was gonna say,
even right at the beginning when he's eating that sandwich and it's like it's just walking, all of this, like, that's what's so cool about these old movies, is like all sound is post. So it's like maybe you'll get dialogue on set and in the scene, but for like 90% of it, they don't have lav mics.
That's why I was looking, because it sounded
those shots.
I was actually looking for a guy. I was like, "Where's the fucking sound guy?" Because this sounds really good.
It sounds so good.
But like, it's a huge telephoto shot. Like, I'm like, the mic definitely sounds like I know enough to know what a mic sounds like close up. I'm like, that mic is like 2 feet away from his face, but I don't see it. And I'm like, no, it's pretty good. Like, there's a couple times you could see the ADR, but like,
it's more. I was more thinking just like everything, like the paper crunching.
Oh yeah, it was great.
All of it was like mixed so well, and it like, but it has. It's so. I guess it's like also nostalgia. I like being able to see the sound design, but then when it's like done really well, or like it's blended,
then you don't see it, right? And that's how you know, like,
right, yeah.
When it just becomes a part of it.
Yeah,
that's the balance, though. It's just like, it's like, it's something really good you don't notice, but it's just like, with our, snooty film eyes, we're sitting there being like, oh man, the sound design. And I know if I said that watching this movie with my wife, if she would have bothered to watch, she'd be like, you fucking nerd. I'd be like, oh wow, they probably recorded that after the fact and then did it in it. It was really good and crisp sounding. And she'd be like, fucking get out of here. I changed my mind.
Just like, I take it back.
I take it back. I was trying to be nice and watch a movie with you. I made a mistake. Anyway.
And that, can you tell me I think my favorite term for heroin is junk.
Yeah. Junk.
That scene when the dude's testing the.
That's the best when he's just like.
He's like it's pure grade sirloin junk. And I was like, hell yeah.
And he keeps going up, and he's just like, oh yeah, this is like annihilation, like, or whatever.
Yeah, like this, you're rocketing off the moon, or whatever.
It just keeps going and gets more insane. He's like, this is the purest thing I've ever seen. But then he just looks and gives he looks like David in our movie when he's got test the coke, and he's like,
oh my god,
yeah,
dude. Okay, so everybody out in podcast land, where can they watch that? They need to go to YouTube.
It's on YouTube. I'll post it. All right.
We have to post it on Reddit.
On Squelch.
We made a short film that is basically an homage to this movie without us.
We
ever
haven't even
seeing
seen it. It was an homage to like 70s cop dramas.
Well, it's because this movie is so ingrained into like everything that came after it that like it's like we made something that just emulates all of the other stuff culminating around it. Like everything that comes together, we made our own version of this, and it's like this. It's very similar and like
It
the
is,
junk, and,
yeah.
like shooting
But-
like us like following in a car and stuff. It's so funny.
The guy.
Like I was thinking about our short film when we.
All right, I'll find it and I'll put it up because
Yeah.
it is like the guy's face is like David when he tries the coke. He's like, yeah, that's the stuff.
Yeah, he's nodding. Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
Anyway, I got a couple Reddits for you. Ready?
Let's hear them.
So Butternut 718212 says, "Do you pick your feet in Poughkeepsie? Outstanding film, true story with real people in the cast, legendary action sequences, perfect performances, all wrapped up in the most tangible and realistic depiction of gritty old NYC. It's a good one. You'll have fun."
I do love that
Yeah.
it is like I'm watching it at times. I'm like, man, it's so cool to see like the real city of New York. Like it just is.
I like that.
It's
Like,
just
I mean, we
untouched.
we talked about that a lot recently as two dudes who've never been to fucking New York.
Yeah.
But like, we get to see it, experience it through film because it's like we watched After Hours and we were gushing about how Scorsese's portrayal, and then we watched fucking Do the Right Thing, and it was like fucking Spike Lee's portrayal and everything, you know.
I know it's so cool to see that. Yeah.
And so it's just like, I don't know, something about it, and especially because it's like, I never would want to go to New York in the 70s, but I love seeing it in movies because it's fucking just great.
Right,
It's so
right,
grimy.
It is. Yeah. There's a hella like I totally like.
Well, that was
I get
before
the-
it became,
I
like,
get the
touristy.
gatekeepers. Right, yeah, I get the gatekeepers who are like, 70, like New York used to.
You don't know old New York.
Yeah, old New York used to have bones. And
Go.
like, yeah.
You should go watch The Deuce. Anyway, it's by the same David Simon, the creator of The Wire, but he did a show about like porn, the explosion of like porn in New York in the 70s and like prostitution. It's really good. Anyway, but that's kind of what it reminded me of too. So Clones of People 2 says, "My second watch of this. I first watched this about a decade ago, and I did not remember too much apart from the bar scene near the start and the chase scene near the end. The film feels very 70s, gritty crime drama with a touch of realism. I imagine that they have captured the feel of 70s New York quite well. I quite like the score, a nice eclectic jazzy mix that set the scene, but was also somewhat tense. This film has some great parts, and the final act is thrilling, but I find it difficult film to get into and was bored at the start. By the time we get to the incredible chase scene, I was firmly hooked. The editing there is fantastic. I didn't like the ending. The open ending is fine with the gunshot off screen. Did Popeye get shot? Did he get the frog? But to follow this up with the "Where are they now?" epilogue is a terrible decision.
Yeah.
I know it's based on a true story, but that was unnecessary. Either leave it open-ended or show Popeye seeing the frog is gone. We can't have both. Overall, this is good, but not great. Solid 7 out of 10. It came out the same year as Dirty Harry, and I think I prefer that. P.S. Anyone seen The French Connection 2? Which, I had no idea there was a fucking sequel.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't know there was a sequel until researching this movie. And I'm, thoroughly impressed that Gene Hackman did it again. And
that's what intrigues me the most. It's like, because you rarely do get the same actor on that kind of thing.
What they did, though, the synopsis, I can give you the quick rundown of the second one. Gene Hackman goes to hunt him down, goes to France, and starts doing heroin in this heroin scene of France.
Up.
And, like,
Is
being
that
like
what
a crazy
happens?
cop, and he has to like get off heroin and like try to bust him, and like apparently it's just like a completely different vibe. But dude, I didn't know Dirty Harry came out the same year, and I haven't seen Dirty Harry, but it's definitely one that I clearly, it's also been parodied so many times, and
Yeah, Dirty Harry's pretty good. I'd have to see it again. I haven't seen it since that bygone era that I watched every movie ever made.
2006 when you watched every single movie that ever existed.
But it's like, I liked it because it was like loosely based on like the Zodiac, and you know what I mean. And it's like it shows up in Zodiac, David Fincher's Zodiac. Mark Ruffalo's character is like the guy that Clint Eastwood plays. It's like based on that real life cop. So that would be an interesting one if we ever did like, because did we do a true crime month one time. I feel like maybe did.
I mean,
But-
why'd we watch Zodiac? Wasn't it for something like that?
Yeah, it might have been a true crime, but it would be cool to do like a based on a true story, like in a different way. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for commenting. Yeah, that score, I do want to point out the score once again. We talked about it, but it is pretty baller. It's pretty memorable.
All together.
It does.
I
Bring
agree.
It together.
I watched this movie. I watched the first 40 minutes, and then I took a break, and I watched another 40 minutes. I took a break, and then I watched the last like 20 or whatever. And so it definitely like the last 20 minutes. I was like, whoa, this movie's great.
I was into it most of the time, except for like I do think they could have cut out like a lot of the cat and mouse following each other through town. That's like in the middle, like that was the big lull for me. It's because that went on just a little too long. Like they could have cut like 10 minutes out of that.
It could have been like a scene where he's like, yeah, I followed him. Just name a couple New York streets, and then you can just cut to them out front of the.
They could have had just like a little bit of
like,
the back and forth, and then him being like, "Wait, I thought someone was following this guy," and then he follows him on the subway because that is a way more interesting scene that they follows him. So,
well, can I interject real quick? Who the fuck was it? Sal and his buddies that died in that car crash.
what?
Remember there's like a horrific car crash and 3 people die. Like the girlfriend dies, another dude dies, and a guy dies, and they're all dead on the freeway. And I'm like, they come to that scene, and I'm like, I kind of was confused. I'm like, are they part of the movie? You know how in like the 70s they kind of show people and you don't know, they don't explain it, where sometimes I'm like, you kind of need to explain a little bit, because I was slightly confused.
I don't know if that had anything to do with anyone. I think it was just like
it
drugs are ruining the city because they found like he's like he had his gear or whatever.
Is that all it was? Maybe just the drug.
I don't
connection?
know. Yeah, that it's just like drug is rotting our fucking.
That was kind of the. See, this is where it comes down to it, where I'm like, I guess it's the story you're portraying, but it's also kind of like showing that like crime doesn't pay, and that kind of like that's where I'm just kind of like, I'm like, man, it's like if you want a realistic portrayal, the guy got away, like that's more realistic.
That's
like,
why I
what
like
mean?
the
like,
ending is because it's like
right.
crime doesn't pay, but also you're left with neither does the law, bud. Like it's
right.
all
sometimes you fail 'cause
flawed.
you're human,
Yeah.
right. But
yeah, I forgot about that because Sal definitely gets blown away at the end. By fucking
that's right.
He gets blown away by Captain Brody with the shotgun. Because
blood
that's the main reason I picked 70s is that primo red as fuck 70s blood.
Well, dude,
yeah, bud.
The first time I saw the blood, I instantly got transported to Dawn of the Dead. That's all I ever think about.
I was gonna put Dawn of Dead. I think one of the weeks. I know that's why I didn't.
I love it so much.
One of the weeks I was gonna do because we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well, right? Did we?
No.
Because I was gonna do 1 week of all horror poll, all
horror,
70s
okay.
horror poll, So
yeah.
But also it's like we'll be doing horror soon enough, bud.
Soon enough. You can never have too much horror. Give it to me,
you
baby.
never can. I know. Give it to me. Anyway,
I want to see Talk to Me. Anyways, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, go see it. Anyway,
Yeah.
You'll like it. Okay.
No, I will. Yeah.
Here. I got Travis's voicemail and I queued it up because I'm a good boy.
Hell yeah.
What's up, Zoomers? Old man Travis here with my comments and question about the French Connection. I really enjoyed this gritty action movie with an unbelievably great car chase scene. The whole drug aspect of the movie was cool too. I mean, it was only shown when testing for pureness and while being taken out of a hidden compartment in the car. After watching the movie, I did some research, and excuse me if you guys already covered these things, but I read all the heroin in the movie was real, and it ended up missing from the NYPD evidence department after the movie. And how Friedkin didn't get permission to shoot inside the subway car, so he bribed the head of the transit authority with $40,000 and a one-way ticket to Jamaica, because the agent knew he'd get fired and had no reason to come back. Also how during that same scene, the car racing under the train tracks was done without them blocking off the streets. And those were the real reactions of the bystanders. Apparently, they even crashed into a pillar and kept on filming. It said the stunt driver reached up to 90 miles per hour for over 20 blocks across Brooklyn. There are a lot of interesting facts about the filming and even how Gene Hackman was like their 5th choice for that role. And he ended up winning the Academy Award for a character he didn't want to portray because of all the racism. which Hackman was morally opposed to. Today I ran into a friend of mine who lived in New York in the 70s. He told me he saw this film in theaters when it came out. I asked if cops were really like that back then, and he said yes, that they'd go into the clubs they'd be at, and they'd get harassed by racist cops. Similar to me, he thought this was a great movie. But there are a couple gripes I have, and my question for you two is, if you notice these things also. First, was how did Detective Popeye follow and track the different suspects all over New York City while wearing that funny hat? Not one other person is wearing a hat like that, so it would make him stand out even more. Next time you see somebody wearing a funny hat, just think how observable they are. And the other issue was how they tore that car apart from top to bottom, and after finding the drugs, were able to put everything back to the point where the owner wouldn't notice. I mean, they were ripping that interior to shreds. Anyways, great pick, guys. Thanks.
Travis, thank you, dude.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was great,
best
dude.
intro yet. Got me. I can't believe that heroin was real. That's fucking hilarious.
I forgot that was something I wrote in my notes.
That's
too,
amazing.
Like they used real heroin and it like went missing. It's that's just so
fucking
perfect.
crazy.
Like,
it is.
That is holy 70s. Like you to do that today.
Can you imagine the shit show?
Everyone would get fired. It would be such a huge like fucking story. Oh my god. So it's like that is I'm just like that's so funny. Well, and it's so funny that like the reason I read that the reason they use real heroin is because authenticity. But I'm like it's a fucking movie, dude. No one's gonna know what flour looks like compared to heroin. Like the two heroin addicts in the theater are gonna be like, that's not real. That's not genuine. It's like. Who cares? No one would know the difference.
It's so funny.
That's amazing. I'm like, there had to been a reason to use real heroin, right? Like
for street cred, Willie Freakin was just like, yeah, that's right.
How do you get around that much? It's like I'm just like
they probably got it from the real Popeye, who's just like cops. Yeah, he's like, I got some heroin for you, and he just stole it from the fucking evidence locker.
Well, honestly, that's probably why he got. I didn't look into like it deeply. Why it just was like, why he just kind of got.
That's hilarious.
He was fired. But dude, Travis, great. I love that you have people connected to this movie.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love to hear it.
Older films that we watch and like, yeah.
I know. Hey, Zoomers, old man Travis here.
I know. Yeah.
I wish I was a Zoomer. We're in our 30s.
I know. So. Yeah. Right. Hey guys, that's what we got to start doing now.
Anyway,
hey guys, no, thank you, Travis.
That's good. No, that was a good one because that was one of my qualms where I'm like, are these guys supposed to be good at following these guys?
No, yeah. Well, they get made a lot. Which I appreciate.
I do. When it finally comes around, I'm like, are they not noticing them? And then they're like, I haven't spent 5 minutes in New York without a company of a cop.
Without a cop. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, you really haven't because they are not subtle.
No. And what was the whole? There's a scene when the guy makes like so sometimes this is where it's like the innuendo is either old or I'm just like I'm not hip to the lingo where he's like I hear you wear your gun on your ankle so that women don't know you're a cop when you rub up against them. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course he's raped people. Every cop's raped a woman, but it's like what?
It's because he's a creep.
Gun?
Well,
what's the point of his gun? Is it just because he's a creep, or is the gun on his ankle supposed to mean something?
That's just,
or is that what the real cop did? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be what the real cop did because it definitely feels like, oh, this is his character. He's got his funny little bowler hat. He's, Jimmy Doyle, the Irish drunken man, and he's got his tiny little .38 revolver that he holds like all the way in his hand. And he's like, I'm gonna get you with this, and he's like palms it like it's a fucking yo-yo or something, and. But that's what it's got to be. But I think that was just like a comment about how it's like he's a drunk creep because it's like, again, it reminds me in like The Wire, it's like McNulty's like picking up at chicks at the bar and like the fucking waitresses and stuff. But it's like this guy just like, if you connect the dots, like he just follows some girl on a bike women, and he's just like, how? And then the next thing you know, they're like, I guess maybe it was consensual, but based on her attitude, but who knows? Because it's like, I'm like, how did he get to this point? Like, he definitely had to do some sleazy lies at best. Best case scenario, it's like, hey, I'm a cool cop. Like, let's hang out, But most likely, he's just like, hey, this bike's not regulation. You're going to have to come with me. Like,
honestly,
I don't know. So I don't know, but there was kind of some weird moments. Like, I don't know. I'm like, these guys are dumb, and that's what I talk about. Where I'm like, the unintentionally hilarious. Where I'm just like, what are they doing? Like, I'm just laughing like at their incompetence, because I'm like, yeah, this movie thinks it's super pro cop, but it's definitely not. Like, it's like I don't know anyone can watch this and be like, yeah, these guys are cool. Like,
I'm hoping that it is because of like historical freaking creations, and then prior after that, I feel like he is pretty satirical. And,
that's why I'm
like, yeah.
Like he makes like his villains. Like, the main antagonist of Killer Joe is a fucking murderous cop, a super crooked cop.
Right. So I'm kind of like, I kind of feel more comfortable, and that's maybe where maybe the reason Quentin Tarantino doesn't sit right with me sometimes is because it's like I don't know how satirical he's being. That's why I say I just call him an edgelord. But anyways,
he is more of an edgelord. Yeah,
that's no here nor there. It's like where this is super grounded, and I mean, like, yes, talking about this, it has really helped me to appreciate it more, but I still, I mean, I'm fine with my my final decision.
I'm glad. I mean, I think it is a super influential, super cool story about how it was made, super gritty, raw addition to a beloved filmmaker who is now unfortunately deceased. That just adds to his filmography to show that, like, what a legend he was. Like
and he's a legend.
I really still want to see Sorcerer really bad. I need to watch Cruising all the way. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of movies that like he's done classics of. So, and obviously
now we gotta go watch 12 Angry Men. I mean, that was
gotta watch the 12 Angry Men remake. I want to. So
see how I feel more confident in its quality now.
Yeah,
so
same.
I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I feel like he'd do it justice. So anyway,
he has an eye for editing. But dude, thank you for everybody. I just wanted to say there's a new Exorcist movie coming out, and I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Exorcist is still living. It actually looks really good.
Yeah, it's directed by David Gordon Green, who I like, but I'm torn on a little bit more these days.
I'm
so
a little nervous, but
I'm sure it'll be pretty cool.
The trailer was fucking sick.
Yeah,
so,
it looks cool.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll definitely want to see it because it definitely seems like they're leaning into it. So
this is a little segue. I saw the trailer when I went and saw Oppenheimer.
Oh,
Oppenheimer Schmidt. He's my name too.
Yeah, John Jacob Killian Oppenheimer Schmidt.
Oppenheimer Schmidt. So I saw that movie, and Exorcist was before it, and now that's going to be our bonus episode that we're going to do for Patreon. So if you're out there,
your Patreon,
land, and you haven't got enough of us,
go
to our Patreon.
Our fucking ramblings. Yeah.
Yeah. You could get an even more unhinged ramble.
I'm about to go make another drink.
Patreon.
So
yeah, right. This is when it gets real adult, dude. I start taking my clothes off.
It is true.
I get into a silk robe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The videos for
the
the top tier, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we're continuing with 70s movies. So next week it looks like MASH won.
Oh, cool, good. I've never seen the movie.
I've never seen the movie, and I've seen like one episode of the show. So
I've heard it's tonally completely different than the show. So I'm excited.
I'm interested to see because I've heard mixed things, but I'm like interested to check it out. What all the hubbub, because obviously it spawned one of the greatest TV shows of all time, or most beloved. I don't know.
Sure, I don't know.
I don't know.
I've seen 5 episodes.
I know the opening.
Sure.
Anyway,
opening's great. Yeah.
So MASH next week. Tune in, and if you made it this far, thank you, and go join our Patreon and listen to our Oppenheimer episode because we're doing all the fresh new movies. That's what we're trying to do with our Patreons.
And a little secret about our Patreon is you can join us typically on Sunday. We'll post if we're doing a stream, but we stream on Discord, and we'll do the movie.
Yeah, we're gonna start hopefully making more of a thing like that, unless I get a job that works Sunday. So we'll see.
Well, sure, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's why I'm saying it's a tentative Sunday.
Yeah.
But it'll be like film week, so we'll have like a moment to watch it if you want to stream it.
Yeah, it'll be good. So
not audio chat. Just
things to eat.
chat with your fingers.
Finger chat. Okay. Well, French Connection, thank you. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Hope you.
French dip infection is what I was calling it earlier.
That sounds real good.
Delicious.
So.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go watch MASH and get back with us next week. And thank you for everyone commenting on the Reddit. Thank you for everyone that watched it. Everyone that listened to this. You know the drill.
We thank you.
Bye-bye.
We.